Hello everyone, welcome to JS Kicks. My name is Deepak. Here in this tutorial, we're going to talk about routing, which is a very important aspect of any framework, be it Angular, React, or Vue. Here in Angular 17, some of the utilities are provided by the framework itself for to get the routing task easily done in your system. So far, what we have built is let's go to the Chrome and quickly see where we stand as of today. So if you notice, we have built this sidebar in a central panel, but if we click on any of these icons, nothing happens because we have not really built the routes yet. And if you look at the application, what we are trying to mimic is that if we have a home route, then we go to the students route and the URL also changes if you notice. Okay. If you click the home again, and you may have noticed that it has changed from from students to dashboard lending. So without further ado, let's try to get this running. But then before that, we will have to build another page, another component, which is rendered over here. That's called students tab. The students tab or the students component. So let's build the students component and then we will try to do the routing part first. Here in the VS Code, you can notice that I've already opened a split terminal down below, and I've already get inside the SRC app. So let me just try to generate a component. It's record. So it has already created a record for us. Just see component. Also open the TS file parallelly. We have built two components by now. You've also seen how input and output works in any application. So here in this tutorial, I'm just gonna focus on how to create a component and things to put in. Here we need to display a grid, and that grid needs to display some of the records of the student. So let's try to include a grid in our application. So here at the root of the application, let's clear this console and quickly go to the Chrome and let's see what AG Grid talks about. It talks about installing the AG Grid locally. So as we can see here, the icon for Angular has already changed, meaning it already has a support for Angular 17. Let's click on Angular 17 over here and let's do an install. And this is how it says. So let's just try to install that quickly in the VS Code. So go to the VS Code, put it here. And let's wait for a while until this AG Grid installs. Let's go to the Chrome again and see if there is any recommendation for usage. Create a component, then create a new component in the application, require dependencies. This is what we need. How the grid would be rendered, styling the grid. So let's just do this bit because we have not really done this. And I think that's pretty much it. The usage of it, we will see it in a short while. Go to the VS Code. Yep. So now we can see that the application has already installed the AG grid. Let's go to these styles quickly. Now we have included this. And now we are going to create a grid. I don't think so. We need this AG grid, you know, AG grid Angular. We need to build the class that is AG. The theme for AG grid we're going to be choosing is AG theme Alpine. And we also need some of the functions here. So AG grid has a function called grid ready. So it fires as soon as your grid is ready for a display. So in that we need to bind a function as we have seen previously. So far so good. It has some error here, so that will be solved the moment we do an import of AG grid. And from here, we need to import AG grid Angular module. Right, AG grid module. Let us just import that in the import section. Define this function in the body. There's another thing we need to change is indent font size. I'll have the indentation arrow. Now AG grid we have defined. Let's do this. Let's define the input argument, which is which is the params. Find it any for the now, for the moment. Find this dot grid API is equals to params dot API grid API as well. Right. So the question mark here denotes that in case if the params is empty, which is not going to be the case although, but it's a good practice to keep a question mark whenever you are writing deeply placed properties. Let's just save this here. There are no console error as well. We're good here. Now we're going to be displaying, so far we have already defined these two properties. So we basically need some more. We also need to provide this grid some data. So how do we provide grid data here is using a row data property of AG grid. So it's basically row data. And for row data, let's say API response. We have not defined the API response just yet, but let's assume that whenever we write a service, probably in the next tutorial, we will see how to write a service, and then we will inject a service and use it, build it, hydrate this grid using a grid data. Now we're going to be putting this some data here. So I already have some sample data available. Put it here. So far so good. Now we will see. All right. So we have created a students record component, a basic component as of now, which just displays one AG grid. It is for now. All right, so there are no console errors so far. Everything looks good. We also define these styles and close this. If you notice that we have three components here, but then we only display one component at the app component level. So if we need to do a routing, we basically need to remove this and put a routing logic somewhere. Since this app component earlier was designed to put the landing page, but then this, if you also notice that sidebar and the landing page, if we need to design multiple pages in it, the sidebar must remain constant. However, the center part over here would change. So let's just quickly go to the browser and see. Let's just quickly go back to the browser and see what Angular has to say about it. Let's go to the browser. From here, let's go to the routing section, common routing task. Now, if you further go down to this section here, it says, as per documentation, you can see in order to set up a route in your application, you need to do three steps. Set up routes array, define your routes, and add your routes to your application. Let's go to the first step, which is set up a routes array for your routes. So how do we set up a routes array in a route? We'll quickly go to the VS Code. And here Let's just close all of these and then see your routes over here. We have a routes array already defined. It's just that there is nothing in there. So let's just try to add different routes. For now, just two. First one is going to be on the landing page, and the second one is going to be on your students where the AG grid is displayed. So right now we will put, so there are two properties essentially that we need to necessarily have in any of the route array object that we define. So in case of this, so the first property is the path. The second property is the component. So path is the path that you need to display on your web application, and the component that you wish to render in the router outlet. First part is the landing page. Landing page, as we noticed, that we wanted this entire thing to be displayed, right? So let's just define this. But if you notice here in the app component HTML, we have it all combined. However, we don't need that. The problem with this setup is that it only supports one route. We do not have mechanism to display multiple routes. So the first thing that we've discussed about is the routes array definition. The second is defining the routes, and third is adding those routes in your application. So we already had noticed that this is the routes array is already given, and then we're going to be defining multiple routes with path and component. And in case of path and component, we need to display two different routes. So the first one is going to be the new component that we will build. For now, we had already built the sidebar and the landing page in one. We basically need to put this in different routes. So what we need is essentially another component that is going to be a landing component. NGGC. Let's make it landing. There's another component already created here. Let's just copy paste the entire stuff that we have written here in the main component. Let us just put this here. And we also need to copy the app component TS things. So essentially the students array and the filter, these two things we need in the new component. Let's go to the landing component, and here let's just define those two properties over here. Another thing we need to do is to put the indentation right. So tab. Oh, now let's go to the top of the application. Let's affect this index. Go to the top. Now we need to define the forms module. We also need reactive forms module, and from here we also need form control. Along with that, forms builder. At the component level, we will define constructor. Inside the constructor, we will define we'll come to the reactive forms and forms in later tutorials, but just for now, just follow along and copy the code which I'm writing over here. I'll explain this in the later tutorials. So here I'm just going to copy paste this bit as is from here to here. Let's make it form form builder, right? Then all the errors are gone here. There's nothing that we can see. All good. I don't think so. We need this here. Let's remove this. Similarly, we can remove these two dependencies. Okay, so far so good. Now, looking at the landing page, okay, we also need NGB highlight. Let's just remove this first of all here and copy this NGB highlight as is from here and put that in the landing component. NGB highlight also needs to be copied. Yeah. Yep, we also need to import common module. There is another error which is being displayed over here. That's precisely is about sidebar expanded. Let's just fix this as well. We don't need this property here anymore. Basically, we are going to be making use of router outlet. We can just safely remove this from here and just go back to app component HTML. Here, we need a div. A div needs to have this property. All the classes associated with that component needs to be here. Now inside it, we're going to be defining router outlet. This we're going to be defining router outlet, and router outlet is a very important aspect of routing. Router outlet gives you a placeholder for your route to render the component which is defined in your route file. So as we had been seeing earlier that previously we had defined the main landing page along with the sidebar on the same page. However, landing page needs to change as we select a different component from your sidebar. The router outlet is a placeholder. This router outlet will help us render different component on the main page. So let's just router module, save it. So far, everything else is sorted. Now we need to fix the routes. So firstly, let's import the routes. We need to do two. First one is the landing page. Second one is students record. Let's just import these. Landing component needs to go here and students record needs to go here. So it's showing error in the data that we have copied from in place. So it's the landing component, it shows at line number. Students record component. Just open this. Looks like some copy paste error. As I can see, some of the properties are repeated here. The country, state, and city. So let me just copy this content once again. Or let us just display three records for now. and remove everything else here. Now let's see if this compiles properly. Go back to the component at the top level. Yep, looks like it's working for now. Let us just refresh this page. And we need to define newly created component link in our sidebar. Let's go to the sidebar once again. The sidebar. Let's just close all of these. Open the sidebar. Let's just open the split screen mode. So here in the sidebar, HTML, we need to define this. Okay. So far we have seen how router outlet works. We have defined routes array. We have also defined the router outlet. Let us just go back to Chrome browser and see what's the recommendation from Angular 17. So as we can see, we have set up the routes array for our application. We have also defined routes in our routes array. Now, third step we need to do is to add the routes to our application. So we know the sidebar. So let's just go there in the VS Code and see what exactly we need to do. So here in the VS Code, as you can see, the sidebar is already there. It's just that we need to define a proper link and move there. So exactly we need to define it here. So we need to define this link in home, student, and subjects. Let's just fix the home part first. In case of defining it home, we need its parent. There are two properties that you need to be careful about. The first one is the router link, the other one is the router link active. So router link basically tells your Angular framework which component to load when a particular button or an action button or an element is clicked. Same time, router link active tells your framework which router is exactly active by reading the URL, and then the corresponding styles would be applied to that particular route. So let's start making the changes in router link for home. So if you notice, I'm putting router link in the top of home component, which is the parent of home. So if you look at this div as a parent, this home link, let's just put this here. So it's gonna be an array forwards and forward slash, which tells that the default route needs to come here. The next route we're gonna build is the student's route. So let's go to the student's parent, which is here. Let's just put this here. And then this is gonna be students. So whenever we are putting any name of the route, please ensure that we put a forward slash. And now we need to define this route in the app routes TS. Let's go here, put this here, save this. And the other property I was talking to you about was router link active. So router link active, we need to provide a class name that will be applied whenever a particular router link is active. By default, it's going to be home, and upon click on the students tab, it's going to be student. Now quickly have a look at all the classes which are given at the app component. Sidebar expanded. The sidebar expanded is defined in the app component. Now this padding would be applied and sidebar expanded would be applied to your class. Let's go back to the browser and see if this works or not. Select the Chrome. As we can see, the students tab when clicked is selected, and I can see the home tab. It also has the styles properly defined. However, there's a problem here, which is that the home button is the active class on the home button is still being applied. It's not being removed when you click on this tab. So far, so good. We'll fix this in a while. Let's just see if all the other things are working properly or not. There's another little problem is that we can't see our AG grid being displayed. So let's just fix that too. Go to the VS Code. We will have to define the AG grid height and width in order for it to be displayed here. So we are going to be going inside the students record component. Let's just say let's just save this here and open this here. Let's just say the style is such that height is 800 pixel, width is 100%. Just save this and go back to browser and see if that works. Yep. The only problem is that the loading icon is being shown and then we'll try to fix with the data. Let's go to VS Code and try to fix this error along with the error that your home component is being highlighted all the times. So VS Code, first thing first, as you notice here in the AG grid Angular, we have not really defined the column definition. Column definition essentially tells grid library that how many columns would be open and what are their properties going to be. So we are not going to be making it super complex. Just for the tutorial purpose, I have sample configuration handy with me. So just put it here, column def. Let's just import this call def from grid. Let's just import the call def from grid community. Define call def along with grid API. See this how to use it. So now we have the call def ready with us along with the grid API being imported from the grid community. So let's just define the call def over here. Column def is call def. So I think this should fix the error now. Let's just quickly go back to browser and have a check. Yep, that fixes the error. It has some of the styling missing and that we will see to import in later. It will fix in the later part. But for now, at least we can see that our component is working. Now we will go back to browser and now we will go back to VS Code and try to fix this home and students are being highlighted all together. So let's just go to the VS Code once again. Problem that we have recently faced. We must understand if we have given router link active properly in our router, then why do you think it is happening? So let's just open the sidebar component. If we can see that router link active, we have provided an active class for all of these. Why do you think it is happening? If you look closely at the router link, it says forward slash. Here at the router link, the other route tells you forward slash students. The router basically tries to match with the nearest match. So it is also mentioned in the documentation of Angular that whatever route that you define must be closer, least probable route must go to the last, and then we must have name for all the routes. Where in this case, as it's a default one, let's just name it as lending. If we have changed here, then we will have to change in the app routes. Let's make the app routes as lending. Now we have different route for two different components. So let's just save this and go back to browser and see if that works. Yep. So now you can see that the students is highlighted and the student table is displayed. Where if you click on the home, then you can see that the home is displayed and highlighted. Subject, we have not created a route yet. So we can shuffle between these two. And you can see that only one is highlighted at any given point in time and the styles are also applied.